is up. Okay, hi. So good. I was saying it's so great to be in front of a football team again. It's been a while for me. I retired from coaching high school football 5 years ago. Coached for 47 years. High school football. Also coached wrestling for 20, track for 12, and tennis for 5 years. So I've been a coach all my life. And so to be back in front of football players to kind of share some of the things I've learned over the years is really joyful for me. It makes me feel really awesome. I got goosebumps just watching you guys walk in here. Really. My name is Coach Tom Feely. And like I said, I started coaching back in 1970. My first assignment out of college, after playing college football, college wrestling, and college track, my first actual job was coaching in a little town, real little town in Minnesota, a tiny town out in the country. Every one of the players on my team lived on farms, every single one of them. And they had never won much. They were never the conference champions of the conference they were in. They usually figured if they won 3 games in a season, it was like the greatest season of all time. So they were not used to winning, and that's why I got the job, because nobody else wanted to coach there. To make it even worse, we were on split shifts, which meant we got the building, the high school, in the morning for our classes from 6 a.m. to noon, and then the junior high got it from noon to 6, and then we'd start practicing after 6. So it was a long day, but it was longer for the kids because they all had to do chores on their farms starting at 3 and 4 a.m. before they went to school. And so it was tough for them, and I had to change a culture of losing to winning. And that wasn't easy to do because their priority was their livelihood, and their livelihood was the cows and the chickens and the crops that they were planting and so forth. That was their livelihood, and that was their number one priority for their parents. Football was certainly secondary. So to get them to commit to 2 hours each day to really become a great football team was difficult. My first year, we won the state. We went undefeated. My second year, we won the state again, back-to-back state champions. Remember, we had never won even a conference championship, much like districts and regions. So we went back-to-back. Third year, we ran into some real horrible adversity. Now, I'm going to talk a little later in this speech about adversity and overcoming adversity. We had the captain of our team die in the opening game. Running down the field, just fell over, nobody hit him. There was no contact involved, but he died. He didn't die right away. He died 10 days later. He passed out just on the opening kickoff. So he was captain of our team, and he was the most well-loved guy, the president of the student body, on and on. I get choked up this day. This is almost 50 years ago. I still get choked up thinking about it. We had to replace him with his little brother. Imagine that. The little brother took over his position, both of them, offense and defense, because these kids had to go both ways. So we had some adversity that year, but we still did really well. We didn't win the state, but we overcame what was a tragic accident. Wasn't anything anybody caused. Just happened that he had an aneurysm in his brain, and no one knew about it. So it was going to happen, but it was devastating. And if I went into that story in detail, you'd probably get tears to your eyes. But I didn't want to make this a downer. That's one example of how a football team has to overcome adversity at times. And I think you probably have had that happen with your team in the past, where a player got hurt that you really needed. You know, somebody that was a real contributor to your victories in the past, and then suddenly he's no longer able to play. And I think all teams experience that. Well, when Coach Stewart asked me to speak to you guys, I texted him back and I said, can I ask you a couple questions? Because I wanted to learn about where this team is right now. You know, I know that a few years back you guys were like the finalists in the state championship game. But I didn't know a lot about what's happened since then. So I wanted to get a sense of where you guys are this year. So I decided to ask Coach Stewart 3 questions, and I asked, I'll be honest, I asked Joel 3 questions, the same questions. They didn't know that I was asking the other person the same questions. But I wanted to get a feel for what the coaches think about this coming season and what at least one of the players think about this coming season. And I'm going to compare those answers. Okay? All right, my first question was this. Being realistic, what would you feel the best possible outcome would be for your team's success? So I'm asking them to predict how this season's going to go. So the player said to me, I think we can make it through the first couple rounds of the playoffs. That tells me, wow, that's pretty, setting your goals pretty high. I mean, that means that you're going to make it to the playoffs, win the districts, get into the rest of the playoffs, and make it pretty deep. Ironically, I asked the same question to Coach Stewart, and he says, same thing. I feel we can make a strong playoff run. So that reaffirmed to me, at least one of the players felt this is going to be a good season. We're going to do well if we put it together. You know, we have the potential to make this a really successful season. That's what I took away from that. My second question was, what is the biggest hurdle your team has to overcome this year to be successful? Okay, getting a little tougher on my questions now, isn't it? And player says, becoming one unit, knowing the plays and knowing what to do and when. Okay, that's kind of what I would expect a player to say. You know, we got to know our assignments, we got to know our responsibilities, we got to know when to execute them, we got to know our plays, we got to know what we need to do and when. Okay, and that's a hurdle at this stage of the game because it's probably pretty early in the season for you, and you're probably still learning those assignments. So what did Coach say? And I found this to be really significant. Our biggest hurdle will be enjoying the process and not looking ahead. We must work every day and take it day by day and week by week. When I read that, I said, here's a man that's speaking my language. He and I are on the same page about how to deal with becoming great is by working hard to get there day by day. He's speaking my language. I thought, this is good. Now, you got to understand, until a few minutes ago, I'd never met Coach Stewart. So I'm just learning from him through this exchange that we just had by text. I'd asked a third question. I think probably the most telling of all, the most important question. What is your team's greatest strength and greatest weakness? Now, I grant that's actually 2 questions, isn't it? So, Joel said, our greatest strength is our head coach, Stu, who holds us accountable and always believes in us. I thought, wow, that is really, that blows my mind. For him to say that, your greatest, he's saying that not knowing I'm going to be reading these today. That it's not just that he's complimenting his coach, but what he goes on to say is he holds us accountable. That just is incredible to me. And more importantly, he believes in us. And that is critical. Because you got to have a team that knows that themselves, that believes that they can be successful. You know, it's self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think you're a winner, you become a winner, you play like a winner. If you think you're a loser, that's exactly what you're going to be. And you can't, as a team, think you're winners unless your coaches think you're winners. Now, I say that with a lot of experience because I've been on a lot of coaching staffs where the head coach belittled the players, told them how bad they were, how lazy they were, whatever. Negative, negative, negative. And guess what? They became what he told them they were. Self-fulfilling prophecy. So, to hear that was, to me, pretty impressive. Here's what your coach said to the questions of greatest strength. Our greatest strength is that we have a veteran team. A lot of guys that played a lot of snaps and knows the game. I used to always say when I was coaching, the greatest coach ever to coach any sport, his name is Game Time. Meaning that experience on the field teaches you more than anything you can learn in practice. That's huge. Having that experience is huge. So, you know, your coaches say that's your greatest strength right now. We got players that have been on the field, have been in battle, are battle tested, they know how to react, and they're not going to panic because they've been there. That's your greatest strength as a team. A lot of guys that have played the snaps and know the game. But he goes on to say, to answer the rest of my question, our greatest weakness. Now, guys, listen to this. Because being great is about overcoming your weaknesses. Our weakness is being able to block out all the chaos that's going on around us and focus on each other. We must kill the selfish attitude. That's huge. To me, that says so much. Because when you hear my talk I'm about to start, that's what it's about, right there. He nailed it, and he didn't even know what I was going to talk about. Had no clue what I was going to talk about today. And he nailed it in his answer, not knowing what I'm about to say. Joel said our greatest weakness is our current effort level, and we are nowhere where we need to be. So we need to work harder, right? That's what both of them are saying. Okay, so this talk is about becoming a man of steel and a team of warriors. Now there are two separate things. A man of steel to me is about somebody who has learned how to become mentally tough. And that's my expertise. How to become mentally tough as a competitor. As a competitor, no matter what sport you're in. How to become mentally tough and what that means. Then there's becoming a team, because you're not just playing out there by yourself, right? You're with a team, and you got to function as a team. And if you don't function as a team, you can't be successful. So you got to learn how to be a team of warriors. And I'll explain what I mean by the term warriors in a minute. Okay, so let's start at the beginning, real quick. Most important rule is the rule to have a dream. Okay? I know you've heard this before, but it's so important I can't skip over it. Okay? You got to know your team's goals, and you got to have a dream of your own. Okay, what is your dream? Ask yourself this. I'm not going to ask anybody to answer this out loud. What is your dream for your future in this sport? Do you have one? If not, you need to think about it. How far do you want to get in this sport? What is your dream? What would be the ideal outcome of your football career? Where would it end and how would it end? Okay, that's your dream. Now you may have dreams for a myriad of other things, careers, other things that you're interested in, and you have even bigger dreams than football, and that's okay too, because there's more to life than football. Okay, and I'm saying that when football's been my whole life. My oldest son played in the NFL for 15 years. Okay, I sent all 5 sons on to college playing football, all 5 under scholarships. Now my grandson's playing college football in a scholarship in a D1 school. My whole life has been football. Okay, I love football. But I'm the first to admit there is so much more to life than football. So your dreams may be in something else. And so apply this to whatever it is that you have your highest dreams. Apply all of this to that. Okay? Your team has goals. What are your team's goals? I've heard 2 goals already in that going deep into the playoffs is a goal. Your coach said that and your player partner said that. Okay? Know your team's goals. Okay? And remember both every day. Every single day. Your dream and your team's dream. What are they? Okay. Most important rule, have a dream. Now, I use a lot of quotes in here because I'm a fan of guys who are much smarter than me, who have lived life recently or a long time ago and have learned from life and have passed it on, passed their wisdom on through their writings or the things they've said in public. And so I'm a big fan of that knowledge and that wisdom. Someone said, a person with great dreams can achieve great things. That might have been Martin Luther King Jr. I'm not sure, but it was a great man that said that. Every day is another opportunity to chase your dreams. Every single day is an opportunity for you to chase your dreams and to achieve your team's goals. You must get one step closer to your team's goals on a daily basis. That's what your coach was telling me. You got to work hard to get there. Every single day. If you want to achieve those dreams, that's important. Okay? Most important rule to get there is to block out the garbage, the chaos, as your coach put it. Okay? One of the phrases I use is ignore the ants and the cans. Okay, what are they? Ants, A-N-T-S, ants are automatic negative thoughts. Automatic negative thoughts are things that you think when you get into a pressure situation. Okay? You're in a pressure situation, what's going to come into your mind? What is the thought in your head? A negative thought is, all right, I'm going to pretend I'm a kicker. Okay? Oh God, it's 3rd down. I hope we get the 1st down because I don't want to have to kick that kick. Or I don't want to have to punt that punt. I hope we get the 1st down. Why? Because I'm afraid that I might fail if I go into the game now. Okay? That's a negative thought. Or just walking out on the field in whatever position you are and saying to yourself, don't screw up. I'm going to tell you so many stories, I don't have time today, about coaches who told their players not to screw up. Don't mess up. I know a coach from the Giants who told one of the guys I trained, who became the Giants punter eventually, don't screw up. If you screw up, it'll end your career. This will be the last play you ever make. He was a punter. And he went out there and he did exactly what the coach told him not to do. Not on purpose, but the coach put the thought in his head. And he did exactly what the coach didn't want not to do, and they lost the game as a result, which meant they couldn't be in the playoffs in the NFL. And that guy never played another play again in his NFL career. That was it. And he had one of the highest punting averages of the entire NFL that season. Okay? That coach had a lot of clout. But it started with the coach making a very bad input. And so he went out there thinking, I can't do that. If I do that, I'm done. It's over. My career's at stake. That's a negative thought. You have to block those out. You also have to block out can'ts. C-A-N-T-S. Okay? Those are people who tell you you can't do something. You're not good enough. You're not big enough. You're not strong enough. You're not whatever. People are always telling you you can't do something. Sometimes parents do that. I did that as a parent to my son who's played 15 years in the NFL. I told him, his name is Jay. Jay, you're not good enough to play D1 football. Don't think like you're a D1 player. I told him that. I was his coach and his dad. But he insisted he was going to play for a D1 school, and he ended up playing for the University of Michigan. They won the national championship, which he made one of the key kicks to make that happen. Okay, he goes on to play in the NFL. I told him while he was in college, he calls me. He says, Dad, I've been working out with Jason Hanson of Detroit Lions. He comes over to our Michigan field and practices with me. I'm as good as he is. I said, Jay, those are NFL kickers. Come on. You're not as good as the NFL. I didn't want him to have a dream that would never happen. I'm protecting him as a dad does. Okay? Guess what? He was right and I was wrong. He not only made a team, he played for played 15 years. He broke lots of records. He was team captain on 4 different seasons. He was elected by the players team captain. Who ever heard of a kicker being team captain? That happened to him 4 times. Okay? So I was the guy giving him cants. You can't do this, you can't do that, you're not good enough, you're not whatever. And he was like, yes, I can. I'll prove it to you. And he did. And I give him credit for that. Okay? Because he's a really mentally tough guy. Your state of mind, you got to understand, is a matter of choice. What do I mean? You control your thoughts. We don't think we control our thoughts. We think our thoughts control us. We let them rule us. We let our thoughts, whether they be negative or whatever, be the boss. And that's not the case. You control your thoughts. It's a matter of choice, my friend. You make the decision. Am I going to be positive and assured of myself, or am I going to, let my negativity take over, or something somebody else has been saying to me all my life, take over? No, you got to make the choice to control those thoughts. That's an active choice. You have to make that if you want to be a mentally tough, competitive athlete. Okay? Because we all have free will. We can choose to think about being successful, or you can fear failure. Okay? Most people react to fearing failure. They go on the field and they say to themselves, I hope I don't miss. Or the batter going up to the plate, I hope I don't strike out. Because that would be awful. That would be embarrassing. That's fear of failure. And fear of failure usually rules what a lot of people do. They allow it. They let their emotion of fear be the boss of them. Okay? Gentlemen, it's all about thought control, both as an individual and a team. Because how you think in your head, the thoughts that go on in your head, determine your attitude and determine your belief system. And that determines the outcome of your efforts, whether you're successful or not. As a team, it works the same way. As a team, your whole team has a understanding of what each other are thinking, because you communicate with each other. And if that's positive, it tends to spread like a disease. And if it's negative, that also spreads like a disease. All right, so here's some of the ingredients to being mentally tough. The first thing is to be coachable. To be coachable, to be willing to be taught how to do something, means that you have to be humble. Humble enough to admit that you don't know everything. Humble enough to know that my coaches, my position coach, they may know something more than I know. Okay? So I'm going to listen to them, and I'm going to try to implement whatever they teach me, because I don't think I know everything. I've coached a lot of guys that think they know everything, and they think they know more than me. And they never became great. I put 16 guys into the NFL that I trained since they were little and all the way through high school. That's how I can say that. Put them into the NFL, played in the NFL. One of them playing for the Tampa Bay Bucks right now. One of them playing for the Atlanta Falcons right now. And they both were from here. So I know that they wanted to learn, were willing to learn, they were coachable. And then they were able to get better because they were humble enough. Okay? All right. To be great and to be means to be mentally tough. And it means that you have to prepare with commitment. Okay? It's not enough just to say, I'm going to prepare. I'm going to prepare for this game. I'm going to prepare for whatever. You got to do it with total commitment. You got to be dedicated to that preparation. You got to believe that everything you do matters. Whether it's how you warm up, whether it's, how hard you try when you're doing sprints you hate. Right? Okay? You got to prepare with commitment. And that's not the same as just preparing. That's dedicated yourself to your preparation. It's a desire to be as perfect as you can possibly be, even though no one's perfect. Think about that. I just blew right by a bunch of stuff. Okay. Some interesting quotes. You all know who Vince Lombardi is? Are you too young? Who knows who Vince Lombardi is? Who does? Tell me. Somebody tell me. Who's Vince Lombardi? They did. The Lombardi Trophy is named after him. So he was probably an NFL coach, right? He coached what team? Packers. They won the first 3 Super Bowls. 1, 2, and 3. Vince Lombardi said, "In the dictionary is the only place that success comes before work. Hard work is the price we must pay for success, and I think you can accomplish anything if you are willing to pay the price." That's the key. That's the cost of being good. Is you got to be willing to pay the price. Practice, he said, does not make perfect. Only perfect practice makes perfect. Okay, what do I mean by that? He said it. I'm just quoting him. Only perfect practice means perfect. That means you got to really work on perfecting your technique. Really work on whatever your coaches say you need to do to become good at your position. You got to work on it to perfection. And you know what? You're not going to get there because nobody's perfect. You're going to screw up from time to time. But guess what? You might end up at excellent. Okay? And that's not bad. That means you've become really good at your position. And that's your goal. Back up. Okay. He also said the quality of a person's life is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence, regardless of their chosen field. So apply this to anything you do in life. Doesn't have to be sports. Okay. Now, difficulties, here's a new concept. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Okay. You probably don't understand that, but your mind and your body are kind of similar. Okay? Think of it as 2 different sets of muscles. You got your brain muscle and the rest of your muscles that operate your skeleton, make your bones move. Right? Okay? Physical muscles grow under strain and stress. So that's why you lift weights. That's why you do sprints. That's why you push your body to make those physical muscles get better and stronger and more capable. Right? That's why you spend a lot of time in the weight room. Okay? Your mental muscle, your brain, your mental muscle strengthens with challenges. Okay? If you want your mind to grow stronger, give it plenty of opportunities for exercise by embracing, now here's a new word for you, eustress. Now, if you look at eustress, the last part of that is stress. Okay? We know that stress is things that make you worry and make life difficult, right? That's stress. Eustress are the same thing. They're things that make life difficult and make you worry, but it's good for you. Okay, give you an example. You may have a test coming up this week or at the end of the week, and you're getting really anxious because you gotta get a B, or you're gonna no longer be eligible to play sports or something like that. Or you just want your grade point averages to stay at a certain level. Okay, so you're getting anxious. So what do? You study harder. Most people do. You know, they'll react by studying harder, a little longer hours, put a little more time into it, because they aren't worried about the outcome. That's called eustress. It's stress that's good for you, because it motivates you to work a little harder. Not going to hurt you. Eustress doesn't kill you. Okay? All right, the next section is called Feel Your Power. Now, this is how to become mentally tough. Mentally tough people break, but they're never broken. Act your limitations, turn your weakness into strength. While you think about what that means, I want you to put your name on your sheet of paper there, somewhere, maybe at the top, because you're going to give this to your coach, Stewart, okay, not to me. I'm retired. I don't need to grade papers anymore. I want Coach Stewart to know what you took away from today, okay, from what I had to share with you. What did you learn? What did you take away from today? That's why you're writing this. And that way he can then evaluate me from that. So he can look at that and say, well, Coach Feely did a good job or didn't do a very good job, okay? Because I can tell, because this is the proof right here. So you're doing that to allow him to determine how well I'm doing. Okay? All right. All right. This attack your limitations, turn your weakness into strength means if you want to become great, you have weaknesses. We talked a minute ago about what your team's weaknesses were. Remember? Everybody has weaknesses. I play a sport almost daily now because I'm retired. I play racquetball. I love racquetball. I've been playing racquetball for almost 60 years. Seriously. 60 years. And I just 2 years ago played in the U.S. Open. What made me good at racquetball is that I was bad at my backhand, like most players. Had a strong forehand, weak backhand, so I practiced my backhand ad nauseum forever. I practiced and practiced and practiced it. And then I started making myself serve with my backhand. And eventually my backhand became stronger than my forehand. And that made me a much better player. Because most people run around their backhand and try to hide it, or they position themselves so that everything's on their forehand side. I love the backhand. I can't wait for that backhand shot. So I'm confident with either one, right or left, backhand or forehand. And that's turning your strength, your weakness into your strength. Just an example. You all have a weakness, and you got to learn how to make that your strength if you want to be great. You don't just try to find ways to hide it. You overcome it. You overcome it. Okay? Our strength grows out of weakness, said Ralph Waldo Emerson. Our strength grows out of weakness. The world breaks everyone, and afterward, Ernest Hemingway said, some are stronger at their broken places. Have you ever broken a bone? Who's broken a bone? Did that bone grow back? Did it fill in? Guess what? It's stronger where it was broken now than the rest of the bone. That's your strongest part of your of what was broken bone. That place where it broke is the strongest part. That's what happens with bones. So that's what happens with people. Not everybody, but some people who are mentally tough get stronger after they've been broken, after they've had a defeat. Strength does not come from winning, said Arnold Schwarzenegger. You remember him? The movie star, also was the governor of California. Strength does not come from winning. Your struggles develop your strength. When you go through hardships and decide not to surrender, is strength. When you decide not to surrender, that is where strength comes. You go through hardships, but you say, I will not quit. That which does not kill you makes you stronger. I have said that phrase to my football teams for the 40 years I coached, 47. That which does not kill you will make you stronger. Believe that. You become stronger because you are being tested. And you're willing to accept the challenge of that test and overcome it. That's what makes you strong. All right, strength doesn't come from what you can do. It comes from overcoming the things you once thought you couldn't do. Okay? Did I get the message across? All right. Lou Holtz said, who's Lou Holtz? Anybody know? All you guys used to years ago know these guys, but now they're no longer football coaches. Lou Holtz coached Notre Dame. He coached South Carolina. He coached University of Minnesota. He's most well known when he coached Notre Dame. And he also was a great speaker. So he said, show me someone who has done something worthwhile, and I'll show you someone who has overcome adversity. Okay, there's a new word. Adversity means something bad has happened. Right? Okay, something bad has happened. You lost the best player on your team. That's adversity. Okay? But he's saying that overcoming adversity is what makes you a champion. The most successful people see adversity not as a stumbling block, but as a stepping stone to greatness, said another person, Sean Anker. I have no idea who he is, but it was a great quote. It's a stepping stone to greatness. Adversity is. When things go bad, and then you tackle them head on. You lean into it, like you're leaning into a really stiff wind. Now, here's today's example of, I've got many examples of people who have overcome adversity, but I decided to use her. Her name is Abby Bollicky. This is her when she was about 3 or 4 years old, and I knew her from the day she was born because her dad's a good friend of mine. Abby was a healthy and tough little girl. She had big brothers. All were athletes. All her brothers and sisters were athletes. And she wanted to be just like them, so she was going to be better than them. And she got out there and, competed with them until one day she came down with cancer. She had leukemia, which is cancer of the blood. And they had to do chemo. And the result of both the leukemia and the chemo left her without the use of her legs for the rest of her life. Both legs, paralyzed from the waist down. Now think about what that would be like if that happened to you today. If all of a sudden you could not use your legs for the rest of your life. That would make you it'd be pretty tragic, wouldn't it? It would be a calamity in your life, right? That would be the ultimate of adversity. Think about that. That happened to you. Okay? You know what she did? She didn't give up. She didn't even lose her spirit. Her dad told me the other day, he said, she never once looked back at what she lost, but she looked forward to what she could do with what she had left. Her spirit and her optimism never waned, not for a minute. She went on and became the captain of her high school swim team, the girls' swim team, the captain. She competed. Now, this is not a swim team for handicapped people. This is the high school swim team. So all the other girls on the team were able-bodied. She was in 4 events, and she was unbelievably good. She didn't have the use of her legs. That's her in the middle, on the blocks. She didn't have the use of her legs. She didn't let that slow her down. That's her in the front in the wheelchair. This was her senior year of high school, which was just 2 years ago. Then she went on and got a full scholarship to play basketball for the University of Alabama. And she was even better in basketball than she was in swimming. And this last year, she played as a true freshman on that team for Alabama. And right now, this little girl is representing the United States of America in Tokyo, in Japan. And that's a picture of her in her USA uniform there at the bottom. I saw her play this week. She's been on TV, or her team has been competing in the Olympics right now this week. Okay? This girl's just a few years. How many of you are seniors? Okay? So you're probably about 18, 17, 18, right? Okay, she's 20. She's not much older than you are right now. She's playing in the Olympics. Okay? She has no legs, but she doesn't let that slow her down. She overcame adversity. All right. I said before when I started that you have to believe in yourself, right? That is so paramount. That is so important. Norman Vincent Peale wrote this amazing book. If you ever get a chance, read it. It's called The Power of Positive Thinking. And it's about how important it is to really believe in yourself. Because confidence is contagious. And so is a lack of confidence, said Vince Lombardi. I've seen football teams and other sports who, when the key person on the team became negative and down during a game and just started pouting and feeling sorry for himself and wanting to withdraw, that the rest of the team followed because that attitude is contagious. I've also seen the opposite happen, where a key member of that team gets the team to turn around their attitude during the game and change the outcome of the game. Because confidence, or the lack of, is contagious. All right. Then there's another interesting thing that most coaches don't explore, and that's faith. Faith is the most important ingredient that we possess in order to achieve, said Lou Holtz, that Notre Dame coach I talked to you about. You either have faith or you would be filled with despair. The only thing losing your sleep over is salvation. Nothing else is relevant. All right, my dad was my role model. He coached basketball, he coached football, basketball, and baseball. He was a head basketball and head baseball coach at a college in Minnesota, and he was an assistant football coach. Now, in the coaches where he was the head coach, his team had to go to Mass on the day of a game because he was a very devout Catholic. And if they didn't go to Mass, they didn't dress for the game. That was it. You don't even get your uniform if you weren't in church that morning with us. Okay? That was a hard, fast rule. And sometimes these guys would come in, college kids, they come in, they're hungover from partying all night, and they're just getting back to the dorm, and they turn around and have to go to Mass. They got a game that day. Some of them aren't as devoted. But he was very adamant about that. But you know what happened? My dad's team won 16 national championships at the D3 level, and NAIA. At the NAIA level, not D3. NAIA level. 16 national championships. He was a very successful coach. And you know why? They were able to pull out out of the toughest situation somehow because their players all believed that God would help them. They had faith. And that faith was real. And that faith gave them the belief that they were going to win. Because they prayed for it. They prayed for it during halftime, they prayed for it before the game, and they prayed for it in the morning at Mass. Okay? And then they prayed for it during the timeouts. Believe me. The greatest accomplishment is not in never failing. This is one of your takeaways on your sheet. The greatest accomplishment is not in never failing. Notice the word not. The greatest accomplishment is not in never failing. It is in rising up again after you fall. That's what matters. That is what makes you mentally tough. It's not that you never screw up. It's that what you do after you screw up. Do you pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and get at it again, or not? Remember, I talked about fear of failure earlier? Fear of failure leads to doubting your mechanics while you are executing those very mechanics. Now, did anybody watch the Olympics gymnastics back a week or two ago? Okay, maybe you guys don't watch that kind of stuff. I love gymnastics, okay? I never played gymnastics, but I just love watching it. I think they're amazing athletes. And the greatest gymnast the United States has ever produced was in her final Olympics. Her name was Simone Biles. She's the GOAT of gymnastics. GOAT. The greatest of all time. They've named the most toughest maneuvers in gymnastics, the triple, quadruple flips, where they're going in every direction once after her. Like 5 of them, because she invented them. She's got so many gold medals. So she was in their last one where she's now the team leader, and everyone knows that she's head and shoulders above everybody else there from any country. What happened, she got into this Olympics this year, and all of a sudden she screwed up. She had a bad fall. And she did it again in the next event. And so then she pulled out. She said, coaches, I can't continue. I can't. I don't have confidence right now in my moves. And if I don't have confidence in my moves, that puts me in grave danger, because these are very, very dangerous moves. Okay? So she pulled out. And everybody was upset. Okay? Everybody was upset. And people were calling me or writing me, what do you think's wrong with her? What's going on? Why is she, and I'm not in her head right now. I don't know her that well. I'm not going to venture a guess. Maybe something happened tragic in her life. I don't know that. But I do know that she suddenly began to fear failure. Okay? And that fear of failure made her lose that confidence that she needed to execute the very mechanics to make her as great as she was, to be able to perform that same way in this Olympics. It wasn't to be this year. But she did come back in the very last event and did really well, by the way. But it took a few days for her to recapture her or recover from fear of failure. Okay? You follow these very important steps to deliver. Deliver is that's producing. That's executing. That's going out on game time, on game night, and making it happen. Great players make great plays. Right? You've heard that? Great players make great plays. Why? Well, because they have these qualities. They know that they can be depended on by their teammates and by their coaches to deliver on when it matters. Oops, here we go again. Real fast. All right, so I'll go through these quickly because I'm sure I'm getting out of time. Coach, am I almost out of time?
Yeah. Let me still about 10 minutes.
How many?
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Oh, great. All right. Number 1, to deliver. This is now how to execute. You've been trained now. You know what to do. Now you've got to go out in the field and do it. Right? Now you got to perform. One thing to be a great pick kicker in practice, but if you don't do it in the game, what good is it? Right? You got to perform. You got to deliver for your team, no matter what position you are. Okay? Stay in your routine, which never varies. Keep a routine. That's what huddles are for. Okay? We do this in all sports. Pitchers, watch a pitcher. He stays in the routine. He delivers that ball the same way every time. There's a reason for that. Tennis players, when they're about to hit the tennis ball. Quarterbacks, when they're about to throw that pass. Kickers, punters, long snappers. Anybody that's a basketball player is shooting that free throw at the free throw line. They go through a routine that helps them remember what the motor memory is that they want to execute, because you got millions of them stored in your brain. You've done that thing 1,000 or 1,000,000 times. Now you got to find that right one and execute it. That right memory and execute it. And so the routine is the hook that tells your brain what it is you want to do. That's very important. Number 2, I say always choose a target. This is, if I'm a lineman, I may be looking straight ahead, but I know I got that guy down there. Or I know I got to loop around and pick up the guy coming around the end. Right? You got to know where your target is. Okay? You got to have a target. You just can't run. Kickers, punters, they got to have a target. They can't just kick the ball into space. You got to know where they're going to put it. It's very important to start with the target. Okay? Quarterbacks, defensive men. You got to know. You got to read, right? You got to read the situation, and then you got to zone in on what's your target and go to it. So if it's the man with the ball or somebody you got to fend off blocking you, but you got to know what it is, read it correctly, and have that target in your mind. Okay? So in any sport, you got to have a target. All right. Rehearse with success. Mentally picture you doing what you're supposed to do, whatever the position is. Mentally picture you doing it, and always picture it in your head as being successful. Always being perfect. Okay? But rehearse it before you do it. So you're getting up to that line of scrimmage, and you're getting ready, and you're reading, and you're looking. You should also be thinking, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to make sure my head gets across. I'm going to make sure I wrap up. I'm going to make sure I do the things that the coaches have taught me to do. So you'll rehearse it as if you're doing it. Doesn't take but a second. Okay? But it always ends up successful in that rehearsal. And then you do it. So I tell my players, rehearse it, do it. Don't wait. Rehearse it, then execute. All right, here's another one your moms would shriek if they heard me say. Be thoughtless. You have to be really executed to be really good at whatever you're doing. It's got to be done automatically, without having to think your way. Here's how I do this thing. It's got to be instant reaction. It's got to be, the habit you've been ingrained in. You've been drilled, and you know it. You don't have to think about it, because in thinking about it, you get tied up in the execution instead of the result. So you got to rehearse it and then focus on the result and not think about what it takes to do that job. You got to just do it. It's got to be automatic. You've done it so many times, you know how to do it right. You've been practicing perfectly how to do it right, whatever your position is. You've been practicing perfectly how to do it right, and now you got to execute it. All right. This is my favorite, all-time favorite quote. And I don't even know who this person is. Max Lucado. Never heard of him. But I love this quote. Today, I will make a difference. I will begin by controlling my thoughts. A person is the product of his thoughts. A person is the product of his thoughts. I refuse to be victimized by my circumstances. I'm not going to let adversity beat me. I avoid negativism. No ants, no can'ts. I don't believe in that. I keep them away from me. Optimism will be my companion, and victory will be my hallmark. Today, I will make a difference. I will not let past failures haunt me. I'm not going to dwell on them. Okay? Erase them. They don't matter anymore. Even though my life is scarred with mistakes, I refuse to rummage in the trash heap of failures. I will admit them. I screwed up. I will correct them. I will press on victoriously. No failure is fatal. We don't die from failure. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It is okay to stumble. I will get up. I will be okay. It's okay to fail. I will rise again. Today, I will make a difference. I will not quit. I will not be defeated by my past failures. They don't matter. I learned. Okay. So when you deliver, then you achieve. You know Nick Saban, right? He coaches University of Alabama football team.
Yes, sir.
Okay? He said one thing I love. One thing about championship team is their resilience. No matter what is thrown at them, no matter how deep the hole, find a way to bounce back and overcome adversity. That's why they win. They have that attitude. They go into the season knowing they're winners. They know they're winners, but they know they got to work hard to be winners again. And when they have problems, when they run into adversity, they're tough. They're resilient. They don't let it beat them. Okay, no matter how deep the hole, you find a way to bounce back and overcome it. Finally, when you do achieve, be humble. Be humble. I abhor the guy who runs around all over the place because he scored a goal or he got a touchdown or he hit a home run and he makes everybody notice him by his behavior after the play's over. Be humble before the Lord, and he shall make you great. When you are humble, God will reward you with that, with future success. Okay? And lastly, this is my last thought, last takeaway. And this is taking what I taught you today and bringing it to an even higher level of being a human being. That's called the greatest compliment you could ever have if somebody says you are a man of integrity or a woman of integrity. What does that mean? Integrity is choosing your thoughts and actions based on values rather than personal gain. That's it. That's how to become a great person. To be a person of integrity. Coach, thank you so much for letting me talk today.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hey, clap it up for him, man.